Hello, you are watching the Data channel, and today we will be discussing another topic as part of this Microsoft Fabric playlist. And so, in this particular video, we will discuss about Microsoft Fabric concept, that is Delta Lake and Delta tables. So this is again one of a key topic to understand if you're working or if you are interested in understanding the Microsoft Fabric, because this is a way of the internal storage, how the data storage is controlled in Microsoft Fabric. And like in the previous videos, we have already seen the concept of like one lake, and also we have seen what is a lake house, or what is the difference between lake house and data warehouse. So, and a few basics of fabrics we have seen. So in this particular video, we will understand more in detail about Delta Lake and Delta tables. So before proceeding, if you are new to this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. Let's get started. So definitely this video is about Delta Lake, but it is also important to understand, take one step back and understand what is a data lake, right? And because so this is the evolution, right? We have seen there is a data warehouse, then comes data lake, then comes Delta Lake. So this is an evolution journey that data engineering or data space has evolved over times, right? So we need to understand what exactly the difference, and how, if you know the history or the evolution story, right? So you'll understand it much better. So like it is always better to understand what is a data lake here first, right? So data lake is again one of the concept where if you already know about it, so you might be knowing these basic details. But if you don't know, data lake is again, it's a conceptual thing where if you talk about Amazon S3, or if you talk about like ADLS, right, which is Azure Data Lake Storage, and also if you talk about HDLS, which is a Hadoop distributed file system. So all conceptually are the similar, works on the similar front, which is about the data lake concept. And if you see here, if you take a key considerations, now that we have understood the difference between data lake and delta lake, so now let's look the delta lake from the Microsoft Fabric perspective. As you see, this is a Microsoft, as per the Microsoft documentation, this is the architecture of Microsoft Fabric high level that we have already seen with all the services and one lake that you see here. And so the as part of this, if you closely observe, so everywhere you can see here, there is a delta parquet format, delta parquet format, delta parquet format, and delta parquet format, right? So this is nothing but a, so delta lake is nothing but it is a kind of a type of of a file format that you are using to store the data. So this is again built on a Parquet as a file format. Parquet is a like when you are using a when you want to have a optimized kind of a analytical use cases, right? So you used to use a Parquet format, and now we are adding a delta here. So it's called as a delta Parquet format, and everywhere you see a delta Parquet format, this is nothing but a delta. You are already using a delta lake. And once you give a structure to this format, suppose you dump a Parquet format, and you create a table on this Parquet format, delta Parquet format, so then it will become a delta table. The table which is created, okay, the table which is created on top of the delta lake or delta Parquet format file, that will be a delta table. So it is like a schema on read, right? It is not like a traditional RDBMS where you create a table and then dump the data, right? So you can create a table, or you can project the table on top of the existing data which is already there. So that is a schema on read. So that completely works on that concept here. And also delta lake is built on top of the Apache Spark, right? So and popular, this is one of the popular source for open source for big data processing. And this is a big data processing engine basically, and it has a which has a high performance, which provides the high performance on a huge data, huge volume of data processing. And also it supports the ACID compliance, and also it has a capacity to have a version controlling. That means if there is a particular table which is undergoing a lot of revisions, right, a lot of updates or inserts. So basically it maintain that history for certain period. So you can use that table or to do a time travel and see what was the data as on particular date or as on particular version which is a backdated, right? So with that it will help to maintain that. I mean, if you want to have any triage the issues or any for auditing purpose, you need any versioning or do a time travel and see what was the data at that particular time. So this will be helpful. And also it uses
So whatever you have use cases, right? Data factory use case, Power BI, real-time analytics use cases, and data science use case, or it is a warehousing use case. So for all the use cases, this supports the Delta Park layer will supports, and it is very important to understand the different. I mean, don't get confused here with the terminologies like Delta Lake and Delta Table. So it's one and the same. Basically, whatever you store inside a Delta Lake, right? So the Delta Lake is nothing but it is the data which is stored in a data lake, right? But only the thing is like the file format will be Parquet, and you store some transaction logs. So that is why it get identified as a Delta Lake. And if you create a table on top of a Delta Lake, it will be called as a Delta table, right? So it is like a schema on read, right? So you are reading, you are creating the data, you are creating a table on top of the existing Parquet file which is available. So it become a Delta table. So it is very important to understand the terminologies and don't get confused with the Delta Lake and Delta table. What is it, and is it really different, and so on.
so everything is a delta format. And see, difference between a data lake and a delta lake we have already seen in the previous video, right? So the main difference is asset compliance and also the time travel, time travel or version controlling that Delta Lakes provide here, because it maintains the data and the metadata separately. Okay, metadata also is stored in a different folder, so that metadata will enable us to do a time travel and also have asset compliant, so that it can maintain or it can handle the like consistency, atomicity, and all the asset compliance properties, right? So now finally we will see what is the power of Delta Lake. Okay, so as you can see, the power of Delta Lake. Before going to this, you can see here, right? When you have a storage which is a Delta Lake, so underlying this is a Parquet format. Okay, on top of the Parquet format, you create a Delta Lake. We call it as a Delta Lake because in this particular box, which is a Delta Lake, all the data which is stored will be in the Parquet format, and it also has something called as a transaction log, that is metadata log, which helps identifying the older versions of the data and also do a time travel, right? And if there is any issues to roll back the data to the previous version, so everything will be maintained using that metadata or delta log. And the same copy of data can be shared by Databricks. We have just shown the example here, and it can be used by Synapse Analytics. It can be used by Data Factory. So it can be used by any other components and different use cases. And you can perform a SQL kind of programming language, Python, Scala, and you can even use a Power BI. We have seen that how to connect Power BI to the one lake, right? And you can use the Synapse Analytics. Okay, so all these use cases you can perform on the same data which is stored in the Delta Lake. Okay, and coming to the power of Delta Lake, so definitely first thing is a flexible format and asset compliance. So when you say flexible format, so the data can be stored in any format, right? It can be CSV, Parquet, it can be JSON, any format, and we have seen what is asset compliant. And also data cleansing and quality control, because since it is having version controlling, right? We can create a multiple iteration to clean the data, and since it is having asset compliant nature, so it helps cleaning the data by multiple processes and all, right? And also it provides the time travel and versioning that we discussed. And Apache Spark is well known for its format and uses a data lake. So we have seen in internally it uses the data lake to store all the data. So that whatever the box you see, right, it is entirely data lake, but you are using data lake as a delta lake. Okay, because all the format of the files you make sure is in the parquet format, and you convert the parquet format, or you use the parquet format as a delta, so by enabling this delta feature, right? So that is why it becomes a delta lake, or the tables become delta tables. So this is a magic of using a delta lake, right? And it is very simple to implement, that we can see in the practicals. Okay, and definitely it actually has a data lineage also that we have seen, and it provides the scalability. Okay, because it uses completely managed services. It can be scaled anytime. Okay, upscaling and downscaling with a complete flexibility we have, right? And how to create a delta table is, you can copy file to a table, and automatically it converts that into a delta table. So these and all we can see in the practicals. Okay, and the delta flow, we can use a delta flow gen to Parquet, I mean the Spark and ADF, Azure Data Factory, right, etc. And we will see this in definitely in practicals. I don't want to club both practicals and theoretical part of it. So theoretically you need to understand these concepts. Okay, and when we come to practicals you can start relating these things. So in this video we have discussed what is the difference between data lake and delta lake, and how exactly the delta lake is fit into a Microsoft Fabric architecture or the framework, and what exactly the benefits that the delta lake is giving in the Microsoft Fabric architecture, right? And hope this was useful, and thanks for watching.